Picking out what pigments to include on your palette can feel very overwhelming. Paint is not cheap, and you don't want to buy the wrong thing. And if you don't know much about colors and color mixing and that type of thing, it can be very overwhelming when you're first getting started. That's how it felt to me. So today what I'm going to do is go through my palette, and I'm going to show you every pigment that I use and explain what I use it for. Stay tuned until the end of the video because I'm going to tell you what 4 pigments that I use the most. So if you're only going to buy 4, these are the 4 I'd recommend. Let's take a look. Before we dive into today's lesson, I have a free gift for you. Watercolor is not a very forgiving medium. It's hard to correct. So having a plan from the beginning is crucial. That's why I created this free video lesson, 7 Secrets of Fresh, Powerful Painting. I give you 7 powerful tips that will help you plan your painting, mindfully paint your scene, and most importantly, know when you are done and avoid overworking. Many students have already watched this video lesson and are seeing great results, and I know that it can help you out as well. All you have to do is follow the link in the description down below, and you can start painting more fresh and powerful paintings. All right, back to the video. Let's talk about pigments. Here is a look at my palette. This is a John Pike palette, and it's plastic. Some people prefer plastic, some people prefer a metal palette. I like this plastic palette quite a bit, and I'm going to show you why. Let's go ahead and open this. I love this palette because of this large mixing area. That was kind of a game changer for me when I switched this palette and began to be able to mix a large, strong mixture of paint. The more room that you have to mix on your palette, the easier that it becomes to create stronger mixtures. And this is really important when you're trying to get the correct values in your painting, especially in that middle value part of the painting where we need to maybe pre-mix a few colors, we need to paint with some stronger mixtures. Let's take a look at what pigments I have on my palette. Let's start over here and we'll move our way around the palette, and I'll explain to you what I use each one of these pigments for. Down here in this corner, this is Opera Pink. If I need a bright little pop of color, this Opera Pink is a nice color for that. Cadmium Yellow. I don't use this one a whole lot, but if I need some really vibrant, bright greens, I can use this bright yellow to create some very vibrant greens. That's Cadmium Red. Little highlights of red around the painting I would use for that. Same thing with Cadmium Orange. I use sparingly every now and then. Raw Sienna Light, that is a lighter version of Raw Sienna. Every now and then there might be a color of a building or something like that where this pigment comes in pretty handy. Rose Madder Permanent. I use this on my palette. This is pretty similar to Alizarin Crimson. I like how it mixes with Raw Sienna, so usually I'm using that in a mixture with some other pigments. Raw Sienna. This color I use in every single painting. It's probably the well on my palette that I refill the most. If there's a warm color on my painting, it's probably going to include some Raw Sienna. Now I'm getting into some of my earth tones. The first one of those is Burnt Sienna. That's a nice pigment. I use it in a lot of different mixtures for a lot of different subjects. Raw Umber, a deeper brown earth tone. I'll use that in other green mixtures, or if I need to mix in the color of sand or dirt. This here is quinacridone gold, and it looks a little dull on my palette, but it's probably the most powerful, bright color that I have. If I need to mix up some very vibrant, rich, kind of glowing tree color in the sunlight, I might use quinacridone gold. If I'm painting a sunset, if I really need some punch of color, quinacridone gold is really good for that. Now you only need a little bit because, like I said, it is a very strong pigment. It can take over your mixtures very quickly, but you can use a little bit of that to create a very rich, vibrant, warm color. Cobalt Turquoise. This is what I use in combination with some other colors to mix all of my greens. So cobalt turquoise with raw sienna, that is my most common base color of green for trees. I usually start there and then I can warm or cool it up after I have that mixture. Cobalt teal blue, it's a nice cooler color I can mix in to some of my mixtures. I actually use it a little bit in skies. If I want the blue color to just lean a little bit towards the green side, I can use a little bit of that. Cerulean is a beautiful blue color, and what's nice about that is it works well in combination with some other blues if you're mixing a sky, but I really like how it granulates once it dries, and that's a really beautiful part about watercolor. And you can get a lot of granulation in most brands of cerulean. Here I have lavender. It's a beautiful color. I like mixing it into different varieties and combinations of blues. I include it in skies. A beautiful combination that I like is lavender mixed with burnt sienna. That's a nice combination. So a lot of this developing your palette is just experimenting, seeing what you like, seeing what mixtures you like, and just over time you can find that right collection of colors for you. Here is another one that I use all the time, and that is cobalt blue. Every sky I paint has some cobalt blue in there. Like I mentioned before, I like mixing cobalt blue with some cerulean and some other combinations to create skies or water. It's a really nice blue. When you think of the color blue, cobalt blue is that color of blue that pops into your head. A more rich, stronger version of blue is ultramarine blue. I use cobalt probably more than I use ultramarine, but again, it's another combination of blue. It adds a little bit of variety to the cooler areas of my painting. Ultramarine blue is a good foundation for a really strong dark as well. Now I'm coming to some interesting colors. This is neutral tint. Neutral tint you can mix in with any of these other colors to create a darker version of that color. And if I need really strong mixtures, I can use neutral tint to build up that strong mixture. I don't like to use colors by themselves. Often they look too saturated. If I create a mixture and I want to just take the edge off of the color a little bit, I can use neutral tint to do that and not make it look so saturated in my painting. I have another pigment that's very similar to that, Payne's Gray. You can use it in the same way that you use neutral tint. It's more shaded towards the cool side. Neutral tint is a little bit warmer. And those are just some other versions of lavender and cerulean from a different brand that I was trying out. That is all the colors on my palette, and I hope that you found that helpful. One thing I did not mention yet is these are Daniel Smith paints. So there are a lot of good brands of paint out there. Holbein, there's Winsor Newton. Experiment. Find what you like the most. My palette was kind of developed over learning with a few different artists, seeing what they used, and combining the pigments that I like the best from each of those into my own palette with my own colors. If I could only have 4 colors on my palette, the first one would be Rose Madder Permanent. The next one is Raw Sienna. The next one is Cobalt Turquoise. And the last one is Cobalt Blue. So if you're not sure what paints to purchase, what pigments to put on your palette, start out with those basics. Having a red, a yellow, a green, a blue. You can mix so many different colors that you need out of just those. So these are definitely the pigments that I use the most. These are the ones that I have to refill on my palette all the time. If I was starting over and I could only have 4 colors, these are the 4 colors that I would choose. Choosing your colors is a personal choice. It can take time to develop your palette. You need to experiment, and as you paint more, you'll start to understand what combinations that you really like, what pigments you use, in what situations to use them. So this can take time. Hopefully what I've shared with you today can be helpful. As always, thank you for watching. Keep working and practicing and growing in your learning, and I will see you next time. If there's something that you're struggling with and you'd like me to make a video about it, leave that in a comment below. I want to make sure that these videos are as helpful as they can be for you. Thank you for spending time with me here today. I will see you next time.